So all right, good morning or good afternoon as the case may be. My name is Beck Barnes. I'm the publisher and editor of Cotton Grower Magazine, as most of you know, and I want to welcome you to the world famous Cotton Companion podcast. Like always, whether you are joining us from Hollandale, Mississippi, or Hondo, Texas, or from any point in the vast U.S. Cotton Belt, we thank you for joining us. I am joined today, as I always am, by the most trusted voice in ag media, Cotton Grower Senior Editor, Mr. Jim Steadman. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Beck. I don't know if the most trusted part comes, but maybe it just comes from, the most experienced voice.
We took
I know we take a little hyperbole from time to time just to pat each other on the back. But thank you anyway.
You know that's from my personal survey of cotton. I was actually with a whole bunch of cotton farmers this past week out in Phoenix for a Delta Pine MPE event, and sure, yeah, I polled all those guys for you. We determined that Jim Steadman, the most trusted guy out there, so happy to have him on my team, sincerely. As we get started here, we do want to take a brief moment to hear from our sponsor, the fine folks at Enlist.
This episode of Cotton Companion is brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System, ready to help you control tough weeds with new 2,4-D choline.
So, all right, we hope that as we get going here, we hope that almost all of you are finished with harvest at this point and kicking those boots up. We know that there's a lot of cold and wet weather going on from every region of the Cotton Belt at this point. It is deer stand weather, to be sure. It's settling in all across the Cotton Belt, particularly up there on the high plains and other parts of the Southwest. Like I say, I was with a big group of growers from all across the country this past week, and the guys from Texas were telling me they were really hustling to try to get in the last bit of this crop before this big cold and snow front kind of came across the region. Jim was just telling me he heard that they got a foot of snow.
10 to 12 inches around in the high plains between Lubbock and Amarillo.
Man, I can't even imagine. We were laughing about that. We get an inch and a quarter of snow here in Memphis, and the whole dang town shuts down, and everybody's running to the, what little hills we have to, get in your laundry basket and sled down them. So anyhow, that's a real deal. Big boy snowstorm y'all are dealing with or had dealt with out there in West Texas, and other parts of the belt. So we hope that everybody, like we say, is wrapping up that harvest, or hopefully you're already done. We hope that you are, like I say, in the deer stand. Maybe you're getting some travel in. Maybe you are getting your Santa Claus wrapped up. I have not done that last bit. Please don't tell my wife about that. I hope she's not listening to the Cotton Companion podcast. We hope that you guys are enjoying the off season. We hope that you're well and truly into the off season. So we got a great episode lined up for y'all today. We are going to be reviewing all of the ag news of the day. There is some hard ag news that we're going to get to eventually, specifically pertaining to the Farm Bill. But I'll get to that in a second. We're going to do some other hard news items as we always do before that, with Jim leading us there. After that, we're going to dive into our Market Moment segment, where Jim has an interview. He did an interview, a very timely discussion with Dr. John Robinson, who is an extension economics professor at Texas A&M. Jim, I believe y'all were talking about kind of this global trade war scenario that's going on. Is that correct?
That is correct, and basically looking at the fact that after President Trump met with the Chinese President Xi at their summit in Argentina, I believe, it looked like there was going to be a 90-day moratorium on any other tariffs between the two countries. They were working to negotiate and see if they could get things worked out. That caused the market to take a little leap. The next day it dropped right back down. And then there's some other extenuating circumstances that we'll talk about as we get into it that could impact it. But we were basically discussing what these tariffs mean and what growers need to do to kind of protect themselves in this market climate. So
there's the key. Yeah, we want to try to give you guys some kind of actionable tips, advice on how you can best manage these maybe tumultuous waters that we're going through at the moment on the global trade market. So after we do that, after we get through with that great interview with Dr. John Robinson, we want to thank Dr. John Robinson every chance we get for joining us. After that, we're going to spend our One Big Thing segment, the last sort of news segment of the day, discussing something that we touched on in the last episode, and that is bringing you a Farm Bill update. We are happy to even have something to be updating at this point. We know that y'all are watching that closely, and so are we. So we're going to bring you, the latest developments on Capitol Hill on that front. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse here. We are going to dive right in with our news segment. Jim, you have a couple items here, a couple brief items for us, I believe. What are we going with first? This Hall of Fame. We have some Hall of Fame guys.
Absolutely. The Cotton Incorporated and the Cotton Board held their joint annual meeting last week. And in addition to the normal business that they usually conduct at these meetings, they also formally inducted members of the 2018 class of the Cotton Research and Promotion Hall of Fame. The three inductees were the late W.L. Billy Carter, Jesse Moore, and Charles Tuning. And just to give you a little background on each of those gentlemen, Billy Carter served the cotton industry in many different roles and leadership positions with the North Carolina Cotton Producers Association, the National Cotton Council, and also with Cotton Incorporated and the Cotton Board. He was very, very active in the industry, to say the least, in addition to being a very successful grower. Jesse Moore helped change the landscape of the cotton industry by taking the lead in establishing the High Volume Instrument, or HVI, classification system while he was director of the Cotton Division of USDA's Agricultural Marketing Service. And that system obviously has set the standard for, or is now the standard for, classing cotton rather than the old-fashioned method of of hand classing. And Charles Tuning helped Cotton Incorporated create and deploy the Engineered Fiber Selection, or the EFS system, around the world. During his time at Cotton Incorporated, he also directed establishment of the state-of-the-art fiber processing center. So three gentlemen whose contributions to the cotton industry are certainly well noted, and their induction into the Hall of Fame certainly well deserved. The Hall of Fame is now in its fifth year, and it's basically there to recognize U.S. cotton industry leaders that have made significant contributions to the Cotton Research and Promotion Program and to the cotton industry in general. So again, congratulations to those gentlemen, and certainly to the family of Billy Carter.
Absolutely. Congrats, everyone.
Okay. Again, moving ahead, in our last podcast, we talked about 5 new varieties coming from BASF in 2019, and I think there were 2 of those for FiberMax and 3 for Stoneville. Since BASF made their announcement, Phytogen and Delta Pine have stepped up and have both released information on new varieties coming from those companies next season. If my math is correct, Phytogen is adding 7 new Wide Strike 3 Enlist, or the W3FE varieties, in a broad range of maturities for 2019. When you combine that with the 6 existing W3FE offerings that they had on the market this year, it's a pretty full portfolio of high-yielding, high-quality varieties, all of them with bacterial blight resistance. Now, the company's again going to offer its popular Acela and Pima varieties that make up roughly 75% of the western U.S. cotton acres, and those Pima varieties also have Fusarium race 4 tolerance. And this past weekend, Beck, and I think you can attest to this, at Delta Pine's annual New Product Evaluator, NPE Summit, they announced 3 new Bollgard 3 XtendFlex cotton varieties and 1 new XtendFlex only variety as part of the brand's class of 19. Now, 3 of these varieties were specifically bred for the Southwest market. One's a mid-full maturity, with the other 2 falling into the very early to early maturity range. And that 4th variety offers early maturity and fits well into those northern areas of the Mid-South, and also over into the Carolinas and Virginia. So this program, which started, I believe, in 2008. So did they celebrate a milestone this year?
I want to say they did. I should know this. I think last year they were celebrating 10 years of NPE.
Okay.
So last year was a nice round number celebration. This year they're in their 11th year.
Okay.
A great pride. I don't want to step on your toes here, but it's a great program that they run out there. I just spent 4 days with all those NPE growers. I mean, there's over 200 of them across the belt, and they are the last step before Delta Pine commercializes these varieties is this group of 200 farmers that Delta Pine gives them these pre-commercial varieties, and they get to plant them on about an acre block on their own farm, grow them the way they want to grow them, and they get a very real-world idea of how these varieties would perform under real conditions. You know, you can't replicate real-world conditions other than putting them on real farms, and that's the way Delta Pine has worked this system. And they all get together, they talk on weekly phone calls with each other. And at the end of the growing season, they wind up, Delta Pine and the growers together, or Delta Pine with the full input of the growers, determine which ones they're going to commercialize. And these four made it. And I'm jumping all over your toes here.
No, not at all, because quite honestly, that's without going into any more specifics on variety names, numbers, and things like that, because, that's all of that. If you're interested in all those details for both Phytogen and Delta Pine, you can find those online at cottongrower.com in the articles that we already have online about all the new seed company varieties, or you can certainly go to each company's respective website, because we don't want to bore you with the details.
No, I don't. I will say, I'm summarizing my thoughts from the week, and to give you a little peek behind the curtain of a story that I am working on, Steadman. I don't even know if I've told you about this, but I had this idea. I talked with this guy I talked with Seth Bird for another story I was working on recently, and he's up there. He's the cotton specialist up there in Oklahoma. He works for Oklahoma State Extension. And he was telling me, I was asking about new varieties, and he was like, man, what my guys really need up here in these northern parts of the belt. Mm-hmm. He said, all this new technology is great. My guys are loving that. He said, but really what we need is emergence. We need, dadgummit.
Good vigor.
Vigor was the V word. I was about to say valor, but it's vigor is what I was looking for. Valor would be good too. But
victory.
Vigor,
Let's throw some V words out here.
We want victory to yield. Yeah. It's vigor is what he was saying, because it's a shorter season up there, and they only get one shot to get it right, and so they've got to get these things out of the ground coming up, running. And so I go to this event for Delta Pine out there in Phoenix this past week, and lo and behold, they've got two of those varieties that are very early. You mentioned very early maturing, are targeted for that northern part of the cotton belt acre, and I know that Phytogen has some that are targeted for there too.
Absolutely, as does FiberMax.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's now all these seed companies are very aware that there's a lot of cotton acres starting to show up in Oklahoma, up in Kansas, and other northern areas of the belt. So vigor is a big characteristic that these guys have focused on, and so you may look for a story on that coming out from yours truly here before too long. So anyhow, now that I've thoroughly trounced all over your
that's a great segue, because we're finished with the news section now.
Okay,
so we can move ahead.
That's good then. That's good. Now that I've jumped all over your discussion. So I appreciate that, Jim. As always, I thank you for leading us in the news discussion. Right now, though, we want to pause and bring you guys a message from our sponsor, Enlist. Our cotton grower custom content editor, Robin Sickberg, recently had the chance to sit down and interview Mr. Ryan Miller, who is the Mid-South Market Development and New Technology Specialist at Corteva Agriscience, agricultural division of Dow DuPont. And so we are happy to hear from both Robin and Ryan. We'll bring you that interview right now.
I'm Robin Sickberg, Custom Content Editor with Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. My guest on the program today is Ryan Miller, Mid-South Market Development and New Technology Specialist at Corteva Agriscience, which is the agriculture division of Dow DuPont. Ryan, I'm so glad you could join us.
Hey, Robin, happy to be here.
Well, Ryan, first of all, tell me a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. So in my role as a market development and new technology specialist, really the purpose of our roles in Corteva is to serve not only just our territory managers, so that would be our sales reps out in the field, helping them serve their customers, so crop consultants, growers, retailers, with technical support of our products. One of the big ones that I would support would be the Enlist weed control system. There's also other technologies that I would support as well in the Mid-South. So again, I'll be working pretty closely with farmers, retailers, as well as applicators, really to help provide them with technical product training. And then also serving as the in-field expert to help farmers and retailers better understand some of our new technology.
Okay, thanks. With that in mind, I guess with everything harvested and done for the winter, what would your advice be to farmers about weed control next year? What should they be thinking about?
I would say the best thing, Robin, that the growers and applicators and retailers can be doing for the 2019 season is definitely just to make a plan. But the worst thing that they can do is to not make a plan. Just understanding where they're at in their production regimes, if they're going to be rotating crops, what type of technologies they want to plant in the future. So if they're going to stick with maybe a conventional type of seed technology, or if they're going to go with some new technologies, things like Enlist. And then just understanding kind of what their neighbors are doing as well are all critical things to start considering for 2019.
Okay, good. We also hear the term program approach used a lot by weed scientists. Can you explain a bit about what that actually means?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is actually in weed science, and it's something that I can spend a lot of time talking about, but I'll try to condense it down here for you just in a few quick bullet points. What we know is that obviously weed resistance is an ongoing problem. What's interesting is that weed resistance is not a new problem. We've actually been encountering weed resistance for a number of years, but with the rapid evolution of glyphosate-resistant weeds over the past years, with the rapid adoption that we took with that technology, we know that we can't rely on single modes of action. So we ultimately need to be preaching and practicing program approaches that are using multiple effective modes of action whenever possible in order to prevent resistance evolution to occur.
How does the Enlist weed control system help farmers employ this kind of approach?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So one of the exciting technologies that we do have in our Corteva portfolio is through our phytogen cotton seed brand. We have Enlist cotton that we grow here in the Mid-South that's commercially available. And the Enlist technology provides tolerance to our new 2,4-D choline, glyphosate, and glufosinate, as well as all the other conventional type products that you can use in just a generic cotton crop. So the Enlist weed control system really gives several different technologies that can be post-applied throughout the growing season in order to get effective control of some of our most problematic weeds. Obviously, a big one that we face here in the Mid-South would be palmer amaranth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always a big one. You're out and about with farmers, obviously, a lot, and you've worked with farmers this year who've planted Enlist crops, including the ones with the phytogen cotton seed with the Enlist trait. So what's the feedback been like?
Yeah, so this year we grew our Enlist cotton pretty substantially in the Mid-South. And with that growth, we saw a lot of great positive feedback. So cotton producers that did adopt the Enlist weed control system in cotton were very, very happy with their weed control. We got a lot of exceptional weed control feedback from those folks. And some of the other kind of advantages that they mentioned and some of the feedback that we got was really just the kind of knockout punch they were able to get, especially when mixing Enlist 1 with glufosinate and getting effective control of their palmer amaranth in fields that honestly in the past they've had a lot of struggle controlling that weed with. So that's nice to give them a technology that they can use and feel confident with. The other thing is just having confidence that the products stay on target. There's lots of discrepancy and lots of issues, if you will, with products moving off target in the marketplace. And we just don't see that with Enlist because of our technology that's built into that formulation. We've had a lot of success with our products staying on target, and our growers that adopted the technology have given us a lot of good feedback. They've had success there as well from an application standpoint.
Yeah, it's important to have some new tools and new products to deal with herbicide-resistant weeds. And I guess with that said, what can farmers do now to help prevent the number of herbicide-resistant weeds from increasing?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing that I try to recommend to folks in terms of preventing weed resistance from occurring or kind of fall practices, the first one that comes to mind right now is as the cotton crop is finishing up harvest, there's still going to be some weeds and escapes that are probably in those fields. Trying to remove those plants physically from the field any way, shape, or form will be the best thing that they can do, or those growers can do in those fields, because those seed are going to fall off that plant at some point over the next several months through the winter season, going to go down to that soil seed bank. And come June, July, August, when we're right in the heat of the growing season, we're going to have all that seed then germinate and infiltrate that cotton crop, or that wherever that crop is, soybean, corn, rice, whatever it may be. We need to make sure that we try to eliminate any of that plant seed entering that soil seed bank. So that's probably the first thing that I talk about with folks. The next thing is trying to implement some sort of full season program. So even during these fallow months, where you're not going to have a crop in the field, putting out some sort of fall burn down to try to clean up that field and keep it weed free throughout the winter months and early spring. That's another big one. And then just coming up with a plan to be the last thing that I would say, Robin. Really just understanding what technologies are out there. We're always more than happy to discuss our technologies and really the whole Corteva portfolio and the myriad of products that we have available for growers to utilize for whatever crop it is. If it's not cotton, maybe it's corn, maybe it's rice, maybe it's soybean, maybe it's grain sorghum. So really just understanding the options that they have to them.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to have to wrap up, but just before we go, can I ask you to tell our listeners where to go to get more information on the Enlist system?
Absolutely. So anyone can go to enlist.com, and there'll be tons of information there on Enlist, the technology, the herbicides, whether it's Enlist One or Enlist Duo. Another website that I encourage, especially the folks that are interested in phytogen cotton, would be to go to phytogencottonseed.com, and there'll be all the information there about the W3FE, which that's our Wide Strike 3 Flex Enlist cotton varieties. So they can read for themselves there and find out who their representative is in their representative area to know who to contact if they have any further questions.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. And again, my guest was Ryan Miller from Corteva Agriscience. And I really appreciate your time, Ryan.
Thank you, Robin.
All right, so very good. Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Phytogen, for that. We are going to keep this thing rolling right along here with our Market Minute. And this week's Market Minute is, as I mentioned earlier, a very timely one. Jim had a chance to sit down with our old friend, the very smart Dr. John Robinson. He's with Texas A&M Extension, and they talked about this global trade tariff situation. All of these, we had kind of a roller coaster week of headlines last week. It was high drama with there was a high profile arrest up in Canada of some Chinese business magnate. And that kind of affected things. And anyhow, I'm assuming you guys touched on that.
We did touch on that.
Yeah, it was a soap opera, man. It was the Young and the Restless on the global trade market.
It literally is as the tariffs turn.
Yeah, as the tariffs turn.
At this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's any true answers or any relief in sight at this point, in spite of the fact that we're allegedly into a 90-day negotiation period with China. But all that was set before the arrest of this high-tech official at U.S. request. So, it's anybody's guess at this point what's going to happen on it. But, it's a complicated issue, and it's obviously one that I don't have the expertise to properly explain, and I'm not sure you do either at this point.
Of course I do.
So,
no, not at all.
Anyway, Dr. Robinson was very gracious to spend some time and talk about this whole tariff situation and more specifically what growers need to be watching for and doing to protect themselves as this situation continues to roll out.
Very good. Couldn't have said it better myself, so we will go to that interview right now.
Welcome to Cotton Companion's Market Minute. Today I'm joined by Dr. John Robinson, professor and extension economist with Texas A&M University. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Robinson. Glad to have you on the Cotton Companion.
Well, thank you for having me.
There's been a lot of discussion over the impact that the U.S. tariffs against China, the whole tariff issue, has had on U.S. agriculture. And you recently wrote a column recapping some of the current movement and some of the things that are surrounding the tariff. What is happening, and how's the cotton market reacted to it?
Well, most lately, let me back up. Since September, the cotton market's been in a somewhat narrow band, it seems like, and I think we were left there by the discussion of the tariffs back in August and September, which was just kind of another round of tit for tat. We're going to do this. Oh, yeah, well, we're going to do this. And that seemed to scare a lot of speculative money out of the cotton market, and we dropped kind of to the level that we've been at since, which is from the upper 70s to the lower 80s. So we've been stuck range bound. Then here recently at the G20, there was the anticipation that President Trump was going to talk to President Xi, and maybe they were going to hammer something out, and there was some expectation of that as the markets was closing on December the 1st, which was a Friday. So we had a weekend to think about it. Monday opened, and cotton and soybeans and U.S. stocks were all higher. Cotton gapped higher and was pushing to break out of this range that it's been in. It was pushing to get to 82 cents. Didn't quite make it. And then it seemed like the air went out of that optimism. Tuesday, the market declined. It filled the gap as the technical guys would expect it to, and resumed just kind of plugging along in the range. And I would interpret that, and a lot of people I read were just simply interpreting that as well. There wasn't really anything hard or fast in this tentative agreement to this truce. That's what it was being couched as, a truce between us and China over trade stuff, and we worked stuff out over 90 days, and we wouldn't do anything, put any more tariffs on. That apparently is not enough. That's not enough of a bullish event to have broken the market out of its range, and it's just kind of typical of the uncertainty of this tariff, this tariff influence that we've had for 6 months now. It's just hard. It's hard to call. I don't know what's going to happen. Morning by morning, I wake up, pour coffee, and look for a tweet and see, what kind of a morning is it? And it's totally unpredictable, and the markets don't like that. So
the market does not like unpredictability.
Right. So we've been stuck there. Now, there's one other possible wrinkle. The USDA's been cutting their production numbers. So from the supply side, there's been a little bit of a bullish possibility. But I think most of those cuts from backing up to the earlier hurricanes and the sloppy harvest season and whatnot, I think a lot of that's probably already been baked into the trading range that we're in and the expectations, even though we may have some cuts in the next WASDE that comes out. I don't think it's something that's really either going to lift us out of where we are. So I think we're going to continue somewhat stuck. There's not enough just commercial export demand. We had another weak export sales report most recently, even though we'd had some encouraging ones prior to that. But we've had a string of weak ones prior to that, and it's just reflective of kind of a weak demand situation, which from the standpoint that it's China not buying our stuff is influenced by this trade deal. But Turkey's not buying our stuff either as much as they usually do, and that's because of internal problems in Turkey. So there's a number of things that are cutting into our export demand. I don't really see that changing. Most of the cotton is probably getting in position to get delivered to the ICE futures, delivered to the board instead of being sold commercially and put on a boat.
And is that a reflection, obviously a reflection of demand, but is that also a reflection on the quality issues that we're looking at for this year's crop?
That's my understanding, is that, number one, there's not booming demand for our stuff, and we don't have a large supply of really good color grades, really good overall qualities. Because of all the sloppy wet weather, we've got a larger proportion of it in color grades like 41s that's the spec for the New York futures, so it's tenderable, so it could find a home with the futures market, and so a lot of it is getting poised, or might be if it's certificated, then it might be in position to do that. Okay. But it's just sort of an indication of the doldrums, the commercial doldrums.
Sure. So Dr. Robinson, with a lot of questions obviously yet to be answered on this, what should growers watch for and be ready to do to kind of protect themselves in this market right now?
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, this whole situation, as frustrating as it is because it's unpredictable, the growers should just flat out realize that they're not going to be able to really build a very good plan about what might happen in a few months. I sure wouldn't have a plan to be paying to store cotton under these conditions with the hopes that it might get better. Especially because my longer term view of things is bearish. So I wouldn't hold cotton very long. I would plan to sell it. If somebody was worried about couldn't sleep at night because they're missing out on a rally or that they think might come, I would try to participate in that some other way, like with call options or something. But you could really only focus on what we have today. So if something happens, if there's another surprise announcement, agreement with China or whatever, or a cut in production that sends the market back up over out of this range or the upper end of this range, I would act on it. I wouldn't just sit and hesitate and say, well, I don't know really what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But if the market's giving you 80, 82 or 83 cents in the futures and you can get a good cash basis associated with that, I would be selling. I would be taking advantage of the rallies that are there, because that's the only concrete thing we have. And you have to act quickly. So
yeah, because apparently current history tells us we got about a 24-hour turnaround, if that.
Yeah, if that, and particularly if it's a supply or just a news flat, the buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of things. Those things happen. The market reacts, and then it comes back. I mean, that's been the pattern, and so people have to act quickly, which means they need to have. They already need to have a plan ready in their mind. I'm going to sell so many bales if it reaches this price, or I'm going to call my broker. I'm going to put on so many, put options on March or whatever. I'm going to take advantage of any brief rally that happens.
Great. Well, Dr. Robinson, thank you for this insight, and thank you for joining us on this episode's Market Minute. We certainly appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, we have our One Big Thing segment this week, as we always do. This week's a good one, though, because we have a Farm Bill update for you. We talked about that a good bit in our last episode 36 of the Cotton Companion, so check it out if you have not yet. But good news for us, good news for cotton industry. There is an update there for episode 37, too. So there has been some movement in the intervening 2 weeks. Actually, it's just been a week now that I think about it. From out of Washington, D.C. These guys on Capitol Hill have apparently been focused on it a little bit. So, Jim, can you tell me what we know there about this Farm Bill?
Sure, because this the Farm Bill suddenly appears to be on a fast track to get completed before Congress leaves for the Christmas vacation. Last week, as Beck mentioned, we reported that leaders of the House and Senate Ag Committees announced that they had reached an agreement in principle regarding the key segments of the 2018 Farm Bill, even though there were a few details yet to be finalized. Right now, it appears that things are on track for both the House and Senate to consider the final Farm Bill conference report this week, which is the week of December 10th. The committees, both House and Senate committees, have been working to finalize this legislative text based on the overall agreement between the committee leaders, and the Congressional Budget Office is due to give both committees their final budget score for the complete bill. Now, once that's done, the conference report will be filed in the House with a vote, possibly middle of this week, Wednesday, Thursday of this week, followed by a vote in the Senate by the end of the week. And since, again, Congress is going to be in session for this week and next week, the 2 weeks prior to Christmas, that gives them plenty of time to complete the Farm Bill consideration. And once passed, President Trump is expected to sign the bill into law. So fingers crossed at this point, we may all be getting a shiny new Farm Bill for Christmas. Yeah, man, I do have my fingers crossed there. It feels like when your favorite football team is in the red zone and you're just going, just get it across, don't fumble it, don't do anything crazy. Yeah. Let's not get it caught up in any sort of weird partisan back and forth at this point. Just get it across that line ASAP, and I will be certainly breathing easier once that happens, and I know y'all will too. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, we want to give a shout out to the staff of the National Cotton Council who've been working hard behind the scenes to keep Cotton Belt congressional members on task and up to date to support this legislation. Once the Farm Bill is settled, NCC has stated they'll have detailed summaries of the key Farm Bill provisions once everything is squared away to share with the rest of the industry. So, yeah, it's a developing story. We will keep some updates going on cottongrower.com. So keep checking our website for some of the latest details.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. And now we want to bring you another brief word from our sponsors from Enlist before we're back to round this thing out.
Are weeds getting tougher to handle? Introduce them to the Enlist Weed Control System. Both Enlist herbicides are effective on a wide range of tough and herbicide-resistant weeds. Enlist Duo herbicide is a convenient blend of glyphosate and 2,4-D choline. It's made to serve as a cornerstone to an effective program approach that takes advantage of multiple herbicide modes of action. Enlist One herbicide, a straight goods 2,4-D choline, offers increased tank mix flexibility. Enlist One also allows farmers to use multiple modes of action by tank mixing with glufosinate or other qualified herbicides. Weeds won't know what hit them. The 2,4-D choline formulation offers inherently low volatility. Both herbicides also feature Colex-D technology to limit drift. For use with Enlist crops, these herbicides are built to stay where they're applied, and they'll make your toughest weeds shrink with fear. Learn more at enlist.com.
So, all right, that is going to just about do it for this installment of the Cotton Companion podcast. Again, we want to thank Dr. John Robinson one last time for taking the time to talk with us and to talk to our listeners. John is and has always been a great friend of American cotton farmers, and we appreciate his work for sure. So also, once again, we want to thank our sponsors from Enlist for sponsoring us, and we thank you, dear listener, sincerely for joining us. If you like what you're hearing, by all means, tell your buddies about us, tell your farmer friends about us. They can get to the podcast in 3 easy ways. The first is simply going to cottongrower.com, add a /companion to that URL such that it reads cottongrower.com/companion. Click that, it'll bring you to a landing page that has all 37 now of the Cotton Companion episodes. We cover everything from under the cotton sun from A to Z, so pick your topic and get to listening. The second good way to find us, to make sure you receive each episode of the Cotton Companion, is to subscribe to our channel on iTunes. If you're familiar with iTunes, if you got a smartphone, just go ahead, open your podcast app, and search for the Cotton Companion in the search bar there. Once you've found us, subscribe and leave us a rating. Let us know how you think we're doing. We welcome all feedback. The third way, the best way to make sure you're receiving the Cotton Companion podcast as soon as it hits the market, is to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-news. Jim here works hard to pack that thing with all of the relevant news of the day, and they hit your email inbox each Tuesday morning. And you can subscribe to that Cotton Grower e-news by, again, going to our website, www.cottongrower.com/subscribe, and that'll take you to a landing page that's very user-friendly, very intuitive to guide you to sign up for that e-newsletter. All we need is your email address. So, last thing, make sure you follow us on social media. We have been active. I was tweeting from this event that I was at out there in Phoenix. We on social media are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter, and on Facebook you can find us by simply searching for Cotton Grower Magazine in the search bar. We hope that you are enjoying our latest issue of the actual magazine, which at this point is the November issue. December should be hitting your mailboxes. If it hasn't in the past day or two, then it will at any day now. So be watching for that one with bated breath. It's a great one, I promise you. So this podcast is produced by Mr. Tyler Hatch. He works at the mothership, Meister Media Worldwide, in beautiful Willoughby, Ohio. My name is Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you in 2 weeks for the next episode of the Cotton Companion. For now, on behalf of my own Cotton Companion, Mr. Jim Steadman, we wish you and your farm all the best.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cotton Companion. Visit Enlist.com to learn more about the Enlist weed control system and to hear from farmers experiencing the technology.